We've heard such moving accounts from the family members of those who died. Statements which I fear barely scratch the surface of their devastation at the loss of their loved ones, cut off in their prime with so much to live for and look forward to. The full extent of their grief and understandable anger, which is still raw, is just not possible to put into words. 3 people have lost their spouses and endured the pain of telling 6 young children that their mother or father was dead. 7 parents are suffering the trauma of losing a child, and many, many other wider family members, grandparents, siblings, in-laws, and each of their circles of friends are impacted, grieving such tragic losses. There had been no safety briefing beforehand. None of the participants had the right type of leash for their boards in these conditions, and you did not have any next of kin details. No consent forms had been obtained from any participant. You did not assess the level of the participants' experience and abilities. There had been no mention to the group of a weir on the river and how to deal with it, and no discussion of tidal or river conditions whatsoever. The group understood that the wind and weather conditions would be the deciding factor, whether the outing would be on the water or a walk. You and Paul knew about the weir in Haverfordwest, but you had not checked it, either that day or in the previous few days. The river was in full spate and fast flowing, and within a few minutes you were the first to reach the weir. Over 50 millimetres of rain had fallen in the previous 3 days, and there were Met Office weather warnings in place continuously since the morning of the 26th of October, with heavy rainfall the previous night. National Resources Wales had issued a high risk of flooding alert 2 days earlier, which remained in place and covered the period that you and the group were on the water. This obviously meant that an immense force of water, 2 tons or 2,000 kilograms in fact, was passing over each metre of the length of the weir every second. It was 1 hour after low tide, so that there was a 1.3 metre drop over the weir for the volume of water above the weir to crash down onto the low tidal water below, and it was very noisy. The weir was not visible until the group was close to it, and only you and Paul knew it was there. Let me make clear, and I stress, you and Paul did not intend any harm to any of the participants who were your friends, and you were horrified at what happened that day. There is absolutely no question of intent on your behalf, and your criminality does not match the enormity of the tragedy. But you chose to lead the group over a weir in conditions that could not have been more treacherous, placing all of them in extreme danger. You did not tell them there would be a weir, and you gave them no choice but to go over it, which inevitably caused this avoidable tragedy and loss of life. Neither you nor Paul were qualified to lead such a tour, and your whole approach to basic health and safety was abysmal when you knew better and had been trained both in the police and with the RNLI to know better, as has already been set out. The total sentence that I impose on you is one of 10 years and 6 months imprisonment. It is arrived at as follows. Given the wholesale failure in the face of the overwhelming and obvious evidence of how dangerous it was, and taking everything into account, if you had been found guilty by a jury after a trial, the shortest sentences commensurate with the overall gravity of the 4 manslaughter offences would have been concurrent sentences of 15 years imprisonment. Since you have pleaded guilty at what was the earliest opportunity, you are entitled to a 1/3 deduction, so that the sentences that I impose on you for each of counts 1 to 4 to run concurrently with each other is 10 years immediate custody.
I am Detective Superintendent Cameron Ritchie of Dover Powys Police. I was a senior investigating officer in this case. Following the sentencing hearing over the past 2 days, the criminal proceedings are now finalised. We welcome the custodial sentence handed down to NerysLloyd. The gravity of the offences and the loss of life following the tragic incident on the 30th of October 2021, meaning that custody could be the only acceptable outcome. Of course, no sentence can ever replace the loss for the families or the trauma suffered by the survivors. We've heard harrowing testimony from the victims and survivors during this hearing of the continuing impact that this incident had on them. I sincerely hope that the conclusion of these proceedings helps to clear the way for them to be able to start the healing process. I want to thank the families and the survivors for their patience and engagement during this complex investigation. The legal bar to proving gross negligence manslaughter is exceptionally high, requiring the most thorough of investigations, necessarily requiring time to complete. Their dignified conduct, whilst waiting for this day, has been exceptional. I want to take this opportunity to thank my investigation team in Dover Powys Police, who have worked incredibly hard to achieve this result. The fact NerysLloyd had little option than to plead guilty is testament to the commitment and dedication of the team and the quality of their work. I would also like to thank our colleagues at the Health and Safety Executive for their assistance throughout the investigation, and to colleagues from the Crown Prosecution Service for their advice during the investigation and in bringing about this prosecution. It would be wrong not to pay tribute to the efforts of all those who responded on that day under difficult circumstances, focused on rescuing everyone from the river. A major incident involving professionals from various agencies, but also members of the public who, at least on one occasion, voluntarily put themselves at risk trying to save the casualties. Their efforts are to be commended. NerysLloyd's catalogue of failures that led to the deaths of Andrea, Morgan, Nicola and Paul should never have happened. Their lives were needlessly lost as a result of her negligence. The impact of that on the families and survivors was always at the very centre of this investigation, and it is with them that my thoughts will remain. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Teresa, Morgan's mother. Never in my life did I think that I would be stood outside Swansea Crown Court. Today, NerysLloyd has been convicted of 4 counts of gross negligence and manslaughter, along with health and safety offence. One of the deaths was my beautiful daughter, Morgan Rogers. It's been 3 long years and 7 months since I lost my only daughter, Morgan, my best friend. Over 3 years since I laid eyes on her. Over 3 years since I heard her infectious laugh. I wish you would all have met her. My beautiful daughter Morgan. She was always smiling, always happy, always content in her life. She didn't want to rock the world. She wanted to live a respectful life. She would never hurt anyone. She was a gentle soul, always looking for the good in people. Anyone that has lost a child by someone else's doing will know that there is no pain like it. The day I lost the day I lost a piece of myself. I will never be the same person without my Morgan. I can never forgive NerysLloyd for what she has taken from me. Though NerysLloyd's negligence, it was over 12 hours before I was informed of Morgan's death. Even then, it was another 12 hours before I formally identified her myself. My precious girl was not important to NerysLloyd. She couldn't give police Morgan's details, as she hadn't even bothered to get Morgan's emergency contact details in case of an accident. That was despicable. Without the due diligence of the police on the Saturday, it would have taken longer to identify Morgan. NerysLloyd's arrogance spoke volumes for the person she is and the attitude that she showed towards the people she had in her care that day. The lack of concern is shocking. Only now that her sentence will start will she have time to reflect. But to be honest, I don't think she is capable of it. Her attitude through this case has shown shown not to be capable by her actions. I would like to thank Dyfed-Powys Police. Also, a special thank you to our liaison officer, Laura Evans. And lastly, the Crown prosecution. But I do wish to put something else there as well. I do wish to say a big thank you to the public that tried to help in the best way they could that day when my daughter and the two other ladies and Paul drowned. Thank you.
My name is Darren Wheatley, the husband of Nicola Wheatley and the father of our two beautiful children, Oscar and Fionn. Both were young when Nicola was taken from us. Oscar was 7 and Fionn was just about to turn 3. Losing Nicola has devastated our family, and 2 young children lost their mammy. Nicola died in circumstances that were completely avoidable and should not have happened. Decisions made by NerysLloyd and only Nerys led to the 4 lives lost. Any sentence served by Nerys in prison will never ease the pain of losing Nicola, and our lives will never be the same again. The impact she has had on our lives is beyond words. I hope Nerys takes the time whilst locked up to reflect and finally acknowledge the devastating impact of her decisions that day. I'm grateful for the judge's understanding of the gravity of what happened and what have all gone through as families. Thank you.